Welcome to the Shine the Way podcast. I'm your host, Jake Blake, and I'm honored to be joined today by Kurt Bangle. Kurt is the head basketball coach of the Mill Valley Jaguars. He's been in that position since 2000. During that time, he is 73-40 at Mill Valley, and he is 91-45 overall. He spent a couple years at Lebo High School as the head coach in 2010 and 2011. He was the 2023-2024 Kansas Coach of the Year nominee. He spent some time playing basketball in high school at Garden City. He then went to Wichita State for a year and finished his career up at Colorado Mesa. He's also spent time on the Mill Valley football program as an O-line coach, 6 seasons there, and in those 6 seasons, he helped them to 4 state championships. His wife is Crystal, and he has 1 youngster running around the house. So welcome, Coach.
Great. Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, we're going to jump right into way back, young Kurt Bangle. So obviously you played basketball because you went to college for it. What else did you grow up playing?
Man, growing up in Kansas, I think there was kind of the standard 3 sports. And to be honest, basketball was the last one. So baseball, football, those were all kind of the main sports that we grew up playing. I know a lot of my friends I grew up in Wichita. They all loved baseball. So those were kind of the main ones we really played.
Yeah, I've run across you in person. You're a bigger guy. So did coaching O-line come natural, or was that a position you grew up playing as a bigger guy, or did you just have to learn it on the fly?
I like to think I was a little leaner back in the
Well, yeah, we all are.
But it definitely came natural. I loved whatever sport I was playing. I just loved it. To be honest, I think the first sport was baseball, and of course the length really helps with pitching and hitting in some of those. But then transitioning playing football, I was defensive end, quarterback. All the positions everybody wanted to play. So
yeah. During that time, obviously playing multiple sports and having success at all of them, you've probably run across some really good coaching. Hopefully not any bad coaching. Did any of those coaches stand out now when you look back at your time as a young player that they kind of pushed you, or not pushed you, but what they did challenged you to, I think I'd like to do that someday?
Yeah, I like to think I've had several really good coaches growing up. Some were at different times of my life, whether it be the youth coaching, where they were just consistent. We were able to kind of run and go play all sorts of great sports. But then I think when I got to high school, I had a few really good coaches. They definitely showed how to get things done, how to work, show up and do your job. And then really the blessing that I've had is not just the playing, but getting to coach with some really good coaches. Coach Appleby here at Mill Valley has been outstanding. He really knew exactly what he wanted to do. He's got his plan. It's been a really fun experience to be around that. And then just a few other coaches. Mill Valley High School, we got Kylie Cornelison. I know you've had her on the show before. And there's just a lot of people to talk to and bounce ideas off of. Okay. Sorry.
Hey, that's okay.
My daughter's bombing us.
Hey, that's okay. I've had my dogs have barked. I got 2 little kittens. They pulled on the cords and almost pulled the microphone off one time. I mean, and then my kids pop in and out, so it's not a worry. Yeah, so I would agree with you. Mill Valley has been pretty blessed. Starting with the football program, Coach Appleby's done a phenomenal job, and the pre-state championship takes place Friday night. So that's going to be a big one, and I'm not even going to ask you who you think's going to win because I think I see it on your chest. That's pretty self-explanatory.
Absolutely.
So, I know a few people in both places, and if you're just a football fan in general and you didn't really have anywhere else to be on a Friday night, if there was an available seat at Aquinas Stadium, I think you should be there because that's going to be a high level football game. And there's others in
Oh
this
yeah,
state too, but that one is probably the top in Kansas on
premier
Friday.
or one of those. Probably one of the best sporting events that I've ever been a part of was the Aquinas game. I was lucky enough to coach it in 2019 when I was the O-line coach there, and they were good. We had a good team too. Nothing, you know, to take away from what our guys were too. But man, that was a special game. Had to come back and win it in overtime. There's nothing special, about that. There was just work, and it was a lot of fun.
Before we get to moving on to another thing, so you coached O line at Mill Valley, and I'm a K State fan right now, and so we've got
Hmm.
Sam Hecht, who's our starting center, as a Mill Valley product.
Love my guy.
And then Gus Hawkins is getting some time at right tackle as well. And I've actually had the misfortune of trying to play basketball with that young man, and he doesn't even know when he hits you. Oh, baby, he's a horse.
Yeah.
Uh, but you guys have, I routinely tell people why I think Aquinas and Mill Valley are successful. They've got all the skill positions, but every other team, like when you played Mays and Avery Johnson, they had skill positions too. But where they win is in the trenches. During your 6 years, how much pride did you take in the fact that you were a big reason why those four state championships happened because you guys just moved people out of the way?
Absolutely. I mean, we had some special kids. Sam Hecht is one of them, but they kind of build all before that. There was just so many guys that were just unsung heroes. Kids that completely bought into 4 years of work. O line is a special position. You know, you're sacrificing glory a little bit and pain. So there's a lot to it that an O line and D line are very special people. But it was really fun to be a part of that. We had some great kids, and it just really showed to a lot of those championships.
Yeah, I talked to Coach Keel here a little while ago, and there was I can't think of I couldn't think of his name then, and I can't think of his name now, but he played offensive line, defensive line, and he's also a state championship wrestler. I think he went to
I
Colorado
already know it.
Mines.
Ethan Kramer.
Yeah, I remember watching a couple of games with that guy, and that dude was just it made me question all of the one-way players because I'm like, wait a second, that guy's playing offensive guard and defensive tackle and every special team almost,
Yep.
and yet you skill position guys can only go what? I know it's a
Yeah.
coach's decision, and I'm sure most of them would want to play both ways, but that dude was special.
Oh, hands down, one of the best athletes I've ever coached. I mean, it's crazy to think he's an O lineman and he could do the splits. He could do all sorts of stuff, and he was a madman too. And in fact, I mean, I know you think we make coaching decisions on if he's playing or not. And that Aquinas game in 2019, we're going down. It's overtime. Defense just got like a big stop, and he was kind of we rotated him because we didn't want to wear him out. But then he came right over to me. He said, "Coach, I'm going in," and I was like, oh, "I know
Yeah,
this is a big moment."
yeah.
Like, so it was fun, getting to coach him and so many of those other guys. Football was a blessing to me. Some toughness, getting to know the community really well, and kind of that whole connection.
Yeah, so let's get into why you do it. That's one of the main reasons I wanted to have a conversation with you because you've spent some time on the basketball court as a head coach, I believe had some time as an assistant as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so you've done both assistant and head
Hmm.
coach at basketball. You did some assistant coach at football. Why do you? What is your passion for coaching?
It's that connection to kids, and it's sometimes that feels like the simple answer, but at the end of the day, when I got done playing, I missed the game, and I knew that there wasn't many other opportunities left for me to stay connected to it. Um, I may not be the smartest guy out there, but uh, I knew I had a talent to be able to talk and communicate and get guys together, and that goes back to some of my playing experience. But the more I just wanted to be around the game and help kids, and being in that environment was just exactly what I wanted to do.
Well, I had a feeling you were going to go that direction. And so
Mm,
one of the guys that connected us, one of my favorite people in the whole world, Aaron Cox, and a former colleague of yours on that football team,
yeah.
um, I reached out to him and asked him for a quote on Kurt Bangle. And here's what we got. He said, Coach Bangle shines the way through his patient leadership. I don't think I have ever seen him emotionally too high or too low when coaching his players. Because of this trait, he is able to connect with them on a personal level and get their best. He embodies what it means to be a player's coach. And I think that
That's
sums
sweet.
up exactly what you just said, that um, the relationships that you can have with
Mm,
these players, both football players when you were coaching that and now basketball here at Mill Valley. I mean, you've had some phenomenal, talented kids, and you've had to go against some, I mean, the Shawnee Mission Northwest teams. Like, you've had challenges, you've had some successes, but those relationships, those will last. And based on what AC, as I know him, AC
yeah.
said, I had a feeling that's where you're going. So,
Yeah. No, I appreciate those words from AC. I love talking to that guy. I miss having him around. Going back again, I know this is more about basketball here in a little bit, but we've been talking a lot about my coaching experience. You know, him and I used to have butt heads. He was the defensive D line coach, and I was the O line coach, and he had some dudes, and we'd always put our athletes over there as the front four, and then their linebackers, and then we'd always try to get big guys that could move. But going against Ethan Kramer every day, gosh, that was hard to do.
yeah,
Some days I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. But then you look across and it's like, well, I don't know of anyone in the state that can block him. So it was fun.
yeah, I've had some fun conversations whenever we happen to catch up about him as a coach, and just listen to his knowledge, from going to high school with him, and then hearing him and just that development. And then, the way he talked about you, and when I reached out to him about trying to get this set up, it made me just that much more excited, because he's an excellent judge of character, and with his glowing report, I knew you had to be a good guy. So I was really
Oh, I
excited. But
appreciate it.
and I love talking about the football side of things, because that is a big part of where you were going at as Mill Valley, and then you jumped over to the basketball. And so, what about your basketball program is like, what do you have some pillars or some things that you instill in the freshmen when they get in there, and you hope the seniors when they leave still remember as they grow up and become parents and maybe future coaches?
Yeah. I really like talking to the guys about just it's more than the game. There's a lot that goes on that sports can teach. One thing we started last year was it was kind of I was driving home one day and really thinking about how can I get our guys to really buy into some things that's hard to do in athletics. Kind of the sacrifice that you kind of have to make at times. And I came with like these three P's, and that's purpose, passion, and pride. And the whole aspect of that was, find your purpose, and that can relate to a lot of things. It's more than just sports. Find what you're good at, find what you like. And then once you do that, you're going to find some happiness within your work. And then take pride in that. Work your tail off. Be the best you can be in that. And then when you can have those things, then you can have some passion and really get excited about things that's going on within the group, within the team. And that's usually, where you can find some happiness within your sport, within your program.
I like that: purpose, passion, and pride. The three P's. That's good. I like it. As a coach, I've gotten, probably shouldn't tell you this because we were playing old man basketball, and one of your best players showed up a couple times, and it was not fair because he's too good, and his name's Reese. I don't know if you know him. Pretty good ball player,
I kind of know.
but so I've enjoyed watching his growth as a player. He plays with a lot of character, a lot of like not necessarily flair, but he hustles. Like, he's very emotional on the court. Like, he likes to go, and he moves fast. And I love the way he plays. And I remember, I think when you guys took third in state, Was he a
Yeah,
sophomore?
sophomore.
Yeah. And so I remember watching some of those games online and watching him and just the way you could tell he was still the young guy. And then last year he took a little step forward. He still had some really good players around him, so he wasn't necessarily the alpha. I have a feeling if I get to watch him this year, I'm going to be pretty sure I know who the alpha is. Maybe you got Ja'Kai Carter too. He's a good player too, so maybe you got two of them. How do you let a guy like him that has a certain style of play? He's pretty freewheeling as a sophomore. How do you let him show his character, who he is, without kind of putting him in a box and saying, "Hey, I need you to be just this." I know there's roles. Basketball is a role sport, but certain kids have certain things they can do even at a young age.
Yeah, he came in and really it started with his freshman year. Um, he he walked into the gym and was like, I have one of my favorite players is Nin Matlock. He's running track at K State. If you like K State there, so he's like, I'm going to lock Nin up. I'm like, okay, freshman, I need you to take a step back, and I need you to kind of appreciate the work these guys have put in, the older guys. And he's never been shy of work. He's been the hardest worker we've had for all the years I've been coaching. Like you said, he plays with a passion. He has hair on fire,
Mm-hmm.
and I think kind of helping him find that how he can really help himself, but also help the team. He wants to win more than anything. I mean, every coach that I talk to that's recruited him for when he's going to go play after us, that's the one thing they're like, man, he's a dog. He wants to get after it. He wants to dive on the loose balls. Those are the things that have really started kind of rolling for him. And he did that as a young athlete. And then guys around him kind of understood that maybe there's a time he takes a slightly wild shot, but they know that he's going to go work to get it back for him. So he's kind of just developed a little bit of that on his own. But we've had a great core of older guys that support and understand that he's not just going to kind of do his own thing. He's trying to do it for everyone.
Mm-hmm. How has he been how's his leadership? Because I would imagine so. I'm a big fan of your junior class. Coached some of those kids growing up. Coached against a lot of them. Stone, Hayes Henderson, Grady Larson. Good kids and
Yeah.
phenomenal athletes as well. But I imagine some of those guys having that guy a year ahead of them, and then your sophomores and your freshmen. Um, they see your best player or one of your best players and the way he's willing to dive on the floor. He'll do whatever it takes to win. Is that how he shows his leadership, or has he developed an ability to be a vocal leader as well? And how do you in your program try to instill in your seniors? Because he had Kafis last year as a senior, and he was a very good player in his own right. Do you have to push the seniors, or is it you just kind of see who it comes naturally to? How do you vet that out each year?
That's always, man, if I had the answer to that, I would probably be coaching for millions. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that is the hardest thing in the world with high school guys. The leadership aspect is just so many of them haven't had those opportunities. And, we're talking about kids that are the oldest ones we got, 16, 17 years old, maybe an occasional 18-year old. But they were all so young, just not too many, years ago. And so really trying to develop that is really a hard thing to do. I try to give opportunities, and I think sometimes it does come to that natural instinct. Some guys are really gifted at that. Talking about Reese, he's getting there. He is a more of a let your actions speak for yourself. Whereas, one of my other favorites that I love on our team is Ja'Kai Carter. He loves to talk, and he does a great job of really communicating those things. He was working with one of our other young guys, AJ, yesterday, and just talking him through like, here's some things that I'm seeing in open gym and what you can do. He does a good job of motivating. So the blend between those two and others in our program have been really good.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I was really curious about that because the limited time I've been around Reese, he seems like I'm gonna show you how to do it. And so to be able to have a Jakai that can tell you how to do it while still show you, let's not get it wrong. He can go get it himself. He can do everything as well. Um, but that's a good blend, and um, man, you're pretty fortunate this year. That's always a good thing
Yeah.
to have there. You got kind of yin and yang right there as two seniors, and
Hmm.
not to discount any other seniors in your program, because it's not
Yeah.
just a 2-man game; it's a 5-man game, and technically it's even more than that because you got to have a bench. But um, those are the guys that I know because I've watched a little bit and
Right.
they've played quite a bit of basketball for Mill Valley. Just transitioning real quick, just because I want to get back to your style. But
Hmm.
what kind of so you played a year at Wichita State and then you went to Colorado Mesa. What style of basketball did you guys play while you were in college?
Man, it seems so long ago. My first year coming out of high school, because high school we were slow the ball, play in the half court. I'm pretty sure that's how everybody was back in the day. I actually year or two ago, my buddy got film from when we were in the state tournament my junior year. I was watching it, and it feels so different in my head. But watching it online again at this point in my life, and it seems so different. Um, but in college, with Coach Turgeon, an old KU guy, he was definitely a kind of control pace a little bit. We had a lot of kind of calls. We had a lot of little wrinkles. It wasn't quite the modern game of what it is nowadays. But we were still getting up and down. We had some really good athletes that could get up and down and play. That was the start of kind of Wichita State's run up until they got into Ron Baker and Fred Van Vliet and those guys. But yeah, it was a kind of a controlled, fast pace. I don't know how to say
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
but then when I got to Colorado Mesa, that style was even a little different too. Um, uh, our coach, he definitely was more open. We didn't have really set plays. It was kind of read and let guys play, and then that way defense can't scout you. They don't know your calls, but your guard's going to go make a play, and we're all know how to move off of him and play that way.
So with that, the reason I ask is, not to age you, but you're right at the same age as I am. You're a little younger than I am, but the style of play has changed quite a bit. I mean, I remember just from the way my middle school was to my first year of high school, and then we got a new coach, and then he changed to a fast pace, up tempo combo with the Tex Winter triangle, and it was just like drinking from a fire
Oh yeah.
hose that first year. But what are you able to take from the way you played in college and still bring it to today? Even though my guess is for Coach Turgeon and your coach out at Colorado Mesa, there was not a ton of high ball screens like the game is today.
Yeah.
Um, especially with the shot clock now in high school, when in doubt, get your put people in a ball screen situations, and if they don't know how to handle it, especially when you got a shooter like him, like Reese, and a ball handler like Chakai, they'd make the decisions. If they don't know how to handle that, I mean, that's just easy money every day. And
Hmm.
so what have you taken from your playing days to still try to use it to today, but also playing more of the up tempo game that you guys like to play?
Yeah. A lot of the coaches that I, I had in college, some of their philosophy was to kind of let your players make plays. You don't want you don't want the players to kind of looking back and slowing themselves down and overthinking. There's kind of the quote that if they're thinking too much, if you're thinking, you're stinking. So there's kind of those philosophies that are kind of going forward where it's push tempo, play, play, play. The more interactions they have, kind of the better they're going to handle those intense situations. The ball screen has been something that's developed more over the last 5 to 10 years, but it's something defenses are trying to evolve to that too. We're seeing a lot of teams that want to trap out of the ball screen and take those away, which can be tough to high school kids. Shoot, a couple years ago, I saw someone doing what's called ice, and that's more of a pro level thing, but they were using it down at the high school level. So it's crazy to think how the high school game has changed. I was talking with someone the other day. We had a kid, Mason Kemp, a couple years back. He had like 45 dunks in the season. And I remember back in high school, I mean, I was a big guy. You get a dunk and everyone's like, wow, this is amazing. But, we were having dunks, we were throwing lobs, and guys are kind of golf clapping on the sidelines. It's like, how are we not going nuts over here? So I think the game has changed to where the kids kind of are used to this. This is what they want to do, and this is what they find fun.
Speaking of Mason, he was another one that showed up over the summer. Brett Clark.
You've had a lot of those guys.
Yeah, you know Brett Clark at all? I think his
I
son.
feel like the name's familiar.
His son was in the program. I think I don't know if he's a junior, senior, but he would bring all of them because he had a son in their class, and so he was bringing Mason and gosh dang it, Cale Drummond. I just came back from a hernia and had to try to guard him. That was stupid.
No,
not even fun.
Little Steve Nash.
Oh gosh, one of the quickest guys I've ever. I didn't stand in front of him because he's by me, but insanely quick. So if you had your perfect complement of players to run the offense that you wanted to run, what style of basketball would you play?
Honestly, I think we've been really close to it the last couple of years. Last year, we set a school record for the most points per game. I think it was like 70, a little over 73, which is wild for a high school team. But even 2 years ago, we were pushing that limit. Obviously, as a coach, I always think there's things that we can improve and tweak. I do like that up and down, having guys go and attack the rim and get to the paint, get the outside kicks. It's a beautiful game when the ball is just flowing. And of course, everyone loves points. So,
Yeah.
It's a couple of years ago, like you said, with Mason Camp, I loved it. We taught our guys how to drive and toss the ball to the backside rim. And if you had a big guy like Mason, those are just dunks off the backside. Mm-hmm. And that's really hard at the high school level. So we would play more of a 4-out, 1-in style motion. And we keep that guy along the baseline. And as their defensive steps up, then we're getting backside dunks or layups out of it. It was a really fun time.
Did it take you any time at all? Because, I've talked to Steve Wallace at Piper, Coach Rice, Coach Roby, and Coach Tinsley, and I think fast is the answer everybody gives because it's a fun style of basketball. You have to get comfortable with the fact that you may give up some layups because you get going so fast, or you have a turnover because you're trying. They're high school kids. Even the really good ones are still high school kids, and sometimes they get going too fast. Did it take some time, or did you have to get comfortable with the fact that we may be giving up a few run-out layups just because of the speed we're trying to play at? Or do you just try to slow it back a little bit and get them back into, okay, we want to go about 80, not 90?
Right. I think that's kind of how I've always been. I don't know why. I'm the post player. So when I was growing up, I was like, hey, slow down, give me the ball. I want to get back the guy down and get my shots. But I don't know. It kind of came naturally to my philosophy on how to play fast. And I do know that, sometimes if you score quick, they got the ball back. Probably the funnest game I've ever been a part of was that Shawnee Mission Northwest game this last year. And, it was a heavyweight fight. It was back and forth. And of course, the faster you play, then they're playing fast. So you're playing right into that. And, again, I think the better you can get your players to wrap their mind around that speed and understanding that you're not always going to be perfect, then the better they're going to play.
Do you say we're going to play this way regardless of who is on the other side of the court? Or do you ever have to take a look and say, okay, we like to play fast, but so and so does that even better than we do. So maybe we need to try to play in the 50s versus try in the 70s. Or do you just say, hey guys, here's the deal. We're going to play fast. They're going to play fast. We got to get some stops too, or this could get out. Like, how do you handle that? Because, you know, I'm a soccer guy. My sons like soccer. My daughter likes soccer, but so I've seen how some soccer teams will essentially pack it in and try to get that one
Hmm.
counter goal and win 1-0. Or sometimes even at the higher levels, they'll just be happy with the 0-0 tie. Well, obviously you can't do that in basketball, but you can slow it down to where you're using that full 35 seconds every time,
Right.
trying to get a good shot at the end. So maybe there's less possessions. How do you handle that?
Well, I think the game has changed, and with only 1 year under our belt with using the shot clock, it's going to become more difficult to control clock like that. But you know, I, honestly, a lot of my philosophy, I have what I really like to do, but I'm not boneheaded enough to say like if our guys are better suited for something else, then I have to adapt as a coach. I have
Hmm.
to adjust to what is going to suit us. And I don't think in the last couple of years, really, or even 3 years, that I felt like we really need to change a lot of what we do. And I think some of this comes back to Applebee's philosophies, where I was with him, and some of the basketball in me was we're on a Friday night and we've practiced for a 4-man front all week, and we get there and all of a sudden they've shifted to do something different because they're like, hey, we're playing Mill Valley, we got to do something or otherwise they're going to kill us. And so I would always go to him at halftime like, hey coach, if we just did it this way, a little different, and add this wrinkle, just draw it up and have the guys go do it, then we got something here. He's like, coach, if we haven't practiced that, I don't want to just jump into something. So it made at first I was like, well, as a basketball coach, we could just draw something up and see if we can hit this. Um, but on the football side, it makes a whole lot of sense to be like, we are who we are, and we're going to be really good at it. And if they're going to try to stop us with it, then we're not going to water ourselves down to go, change everything up.
Yeah, and that does make sense. Even at the basketball level, if you are a guy that has a team that can play fast, you've got Ja'Kai Carter, Reese, and last year you had Kafis on the wing. So you've got two shooters and a guard that can get anywhere. And not to discredit your 4 and 5 guys, those guys did a lot of offensive rebounding and making that extra pass. And then if you ignored them, they'd hit a shot. And so you guys did have that. And so that makes a lot of sense that, if you have a certain style and you have the dudes to do it, regardless of the other team does it, and maybe some people perceive they do it better, you got to let them be who they are. Because if you start to change, on one hand, you're telling them, I don't know that you're good enough. So,
Yeah.
that gets into the fun psychology side of things as well with high school kids. But
Hmm.
I do like that. You for the most part you are who you are, but
Hmm.
you also understand. Do I have the guys to do this, or are they better suited to do this? And if so, we need to
Absolutely.
practice this. So,
Hmm.
um, what with that, you guys have a tough league, and whoa, um, how do you balance? One of the things talking with the UKC coaches is they're gonna with this extra game, but they're also adding Spring Hill, so they're limiting their non-con games because of the league double
Hmm.
round robin, which is tough. How do you guys go about trying to find games outside of your league? Because your league's tough enough, but outside of your league that will challenge you and prepare you for the end of the year. So that way, when you get to the end of the year, it's not a surprise that, oh man, these guys are really good. Try to find somebody that you can say, hey, we've played so and so. They're just like them.
Yeah. No, I think there's a lot of truth to that. You want to challenge yourself. I think the hard thing at the end of the day is we do get challenged a lot. Our league is good. It's been really good.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think there's anyone honestly. Shawn Mission Northwest, I think, has been probably the best team in the state of Kansas, and could make an argument for historically being one of the best teams ever. Um, you know, seeing a 7-footer, seeing a 6'6" point guard, that's hard to coach against.
Hmm.
Luckily, we had some guys that could also play and get up to that level. And we showed that the last couple of years. Our battles between those two teams have been really fun. But I do think out in that non-conference schedule, I've tried scheduling almost everybody. And this last year, we started realizing that a lot of teams don't want to schedule us.
Hmm.
And, some of that I think goes back to Keisha, which I think they're trying to fix because they're trying to add a power of schedule or kind of a strength of schedule component to that because I think a lot of teams are like, hey, win and losses are really important. If you have enough wins, you get to be home court. Maybe you get yourselves in a right position for the playoffs, and a lot of that plays into that. But I think at the end of the day, I love trying to find good games. We played in the 8-10. They have a shootout that they always try to put together some really nice teams, and usually that's always really fun.
Well, my kids go to DeSoto, and I was. They obviously won last year. That was not why I brought this up. It was I just love that they play. You guys,
Hmm.
DeSoto, the two in the district play each other. Like those kids grow up. I don't know how many of them went to Mill Creek together and were teammates in seventh and eighth grade,
Right.
and then they separate and they never ever get to play against each other. And I love it.
Hmm.
I've long advocated the only sport I would say that because of the limited number of games, maybe not is football, just
Hmm.
because well, there's other reasons for that too,
It's
but uh,
well, it's hard to get those games scheduled. Like
yeah.
the Sunflower League, we play. There's 14 teams, so 13 games in basketball, and
Hmm.
they don't even get to play everyone in football. And then just really recently, because football up to this point, they scheduled all 8 games as Sunflower games, and so there was no
Hmm.
non-cons. And then recently they started saying, "Hey, let's open up our own schedule a little bit." And so they've started allowing for teams to schedule outside of the league, which has been really good. And so same thing with basketball. We try to go find those really good games and interesting games. Our football team's playing Aquinas. Our school loves playing Aquinas. I've gone out and wanted to play them as well. And St. James, we would love to play them. I think all that close, depending, how close all these kids are to one another. They
Hmm.
they they play all sports together, growing up since they're little. Shawnee Mission Northwest is not far from us, so it's really fun seeing all of those communities come together. Which parents know each other for forever, and so are the players.
I think anything in a season, especially basketball, maybe not football as much, but I do love the fact that I believe Mill Valley went to one of the Lee Summit schools, or Lee Summit came here, so they were able to get a game for those kids against kids that normally they never would get the chance to play, and so that had to be a cool experience for them. But on the flip side of basketball, one of the things that is like the crowd at that DeSoto Mill Valley game, and I think you guys play again this year. It'll be potentially one of the best all year for both teams, just because, like you said, people that maybe don't even have kids in the program are interested because it's the district.
Mhm. Yeah.
But similarly, St. James and those. But then on the flip side, if you guys can go, say you travel down to Wichita and play Hayesville or somebody like that, that's pretty good, or and get a little different flavor that you don't maybe you don't get in your league. Um, Before we get to the quick hitters, obviously we talked about how fast you guys play anyway. So my assumption is you didn't have very many, if any, 35-second shot clocks. But how did that impact your coaching last year for the first year of having a shot clock in high school?
Um, Luckily for us, I think we had like you said, we had a team that could get up and go, and they wanted to go. I mean, talking with I got some new coaches on our staff, and some of that philosophy that I've had is if you have thoroughbreds, you let them run. And so we definitely let our guys run, sometimes to our detriment, but um, I can't honestly think off the top of my head of a time we got the shot clock violation. Now, I do think it's it's kind of an encourager for some defense. Some people want to always think about the offensive side, but I think you can really lock in some ideas of we're going to play gritty defense. And if guys know that I only have to play defense for 30 seconds or 35 seconds, or as it's counting down and
Hmm.
I got 10 seconds, I get to lock in, and you can really see some fun possessions and some guys that can really get after it. And I think that's kind of helped a little bit in getting guys to play a really solid game all around. But overall, I think as far as the coaching goes, it does kind of remove that element of running a set offense where it's repetitive, patterned over and over and over. Where you're just looking for these actions, running a flex style offense. Now you can still get those, and you can get some good quick hitters. I think coaches are starting to really develop like a package of really fast hitting plays, and I think that's kind of carrying over from some of the higher levels, and that's really the big change.
Yeah. Yeah. I watched a number of games, and the only time I think it actually impacted teams, from what I've heard, is in the state tournament when they actually didn't use it, because it
Absolutely.
threw most of them for a loop. Like, wait a second, I thought I only had to guard for 35 seconds and make sure they only get one shot. That first
Yeah,
shot defense becomes that much more important, because if you get kids to
right.
buy in, hey, 35 seconds, you defend for that, then we go play offense. Well, if you continue to give up offensive rebounds, then it's bad news, which that's always been a bad thing for defenses anyway. But
For sure. Which
uh,
I know that there's a lot of people still have their opinions still, and it's still fairly divided on shot clock and who's for and against it. But I just think, when you have two really good teams and they're playing great, and I tell our guys all the time, when you're in a really good game, it's going to be close. It's going to be possession by possession. And so for a team with a minute or 2 minutes to go, when we didn't have the shot clock, someone hits a big shot and goes up three, and then you might miss one. Then all of a sudden it turns into stall game. It turns into foul. It gets intense, and then
mhm.
it becomes a free throw competition. And I've seen too many games end where it's just hammering guys, and then emotions get in the way, and officials got to regulate that. Fans are getting into it. I think the shot clock really cleaned things up, and I think it's a much more enjoyable product.
I would agree with that, and I also think that I enjoyed the reset of the fouls every quarter for the free throws and the two instead of the 1-on-1. Although the 1-on-1, there's something to be said to go to the line to get the second one.
Go
You got to
make it.
make the first one. Um,
Yeah.
so, all right, the quick hitters for tonight. The all-time Kurt Bangle coach starting five, and uh, I have I have know nothing about your time at Lebo. I'm guessing these five are coming from Mill Valley though, because I know some of those kids and I
Yeah.
watched them. So,
Yeah. Well, there's so many ways I could go with this, you know. And I as a coach, one of the things that you always hate is get off a conversation like something like this, and it's, you know, um, you hate leaving someone off, right? And you hate kind of talking about someone that was a huge impact, or you forgot someone.
so,
But you
so
know,
here's what I've done with most of the coaches, because I know this is a tough question. And the basketball guys answer it. The wrestlers are wimps and they don't answer it. Parents, if Coach Bangle does not name your kid, it does not mean he did not think highly of your son. It's just I limited him to 5, maybe 8, and he's had hundreds. So it's not an indictment. And tomorrow, if you ask him the question, it could be different.
and there's a whole wide variety of ways to think of like some of the guys that have been a great impact, not just in our programs or on me personally. I can think about there's some guys that didn't get playing time that the time I had with them and the conversations I had with them changed me as a coach, and will stay with me until I'm done. But I do have to give shout outs to my first teams, Lebo. I won't even get into the names of those guys because they know who they are, and
Hmm.
they were around when I was there. And they still text me. These guys are now getting in their 30s, I think. Getting married and having kids, but some of them have come to games at Mill Valley, and they ask me for Mill Valley gear, and they never attended that school. They
That's
just want to be
awesome.
a part of what we're doing.
That's awesome because if my records are correct, would that have been your first year or second year out of college?
Yeah,
Somewhere in
be
there.
about
So
third year.
yeah, third year. It was relatively quickly out of college, and
Yeah, I was
so
pretty young.
um,
It
the
was
fact
long ago.
the fact that you made a positive impact at a young age like that, kudos to you because um, a lot of young guys go in, especially college athletes, go in and think they know it all, and
Yeah,
obviously you did not do that because if you did, they probably wouldn't be coming to Mill Valley games. So
that's right.
that's
Yeah,
good on
those were
you.
great guys. But so if I'm talking about some of the better players we've ever had, and I'm gonna go off of this rule.
Hmm.
It's not anyone current.
I love that one.
I can't use those guys because I know, shoot, they might catch this, and we start our season next week, and well, in a week and a half.
Yeah,
Anyway, so going off of our alumni, the guys that I coached personally, last year there was a great guy that I love getting to work with since his freshman year. It was Carter Cavis. His growth was tremendous. He comes from a great family of athletes, and I was just really excited that he could have such a great impact in our program and kind of keep his legacy of the family being great athletes, kind of going with what he did. And then some of the other really good ones, I love Mason Kim. He was an awesome guy. He's playing up again at university. He comes back and checks in on the team, and he's having a fun time. He had a great season for them last year as a true freshman. I think they were ranked nationally and made it to the tournament. I think the Sweet 16 as the D2 teams were. So he's had a great run early on, and I hope that can keep going for him. Some other fun ones that I like to throw in there. These guys all maybe weren't the most talented basketball guys, but one of my first point guards that was a great leader for us. He's actually working on being a pro golfer, Nicholas Mason. And again, all these guys get connected with K State, and
smart kids.
he had a oh, he had a great career in golf at K State. But I love keeping up with him, and he's really busy with the golf. It's all year round, but he was such a great on the court leader for us, and that was my first team, and those guys, that first group of seniors were pretty special because maybe we weren't the most talented as far as basketball goes. We worked hard, we worked together, and we saw a lot of success. They made the state tournament, and that was the COVID year, and that was really tough for those guys to handle all that situations. Then I guess trying to round up five. Oh, man, Nid Matlock was fun. I hope we see him in the Olympics. He's probably my best overall athlete. And I really tell him, I'm like, look, man, if you're not running for the Olympics in the next 4 to 6, 8 years, whatever it is, then I'm gonna be a little disappointed. so so he's good. And then oh man, I think that was four.
That was four. Yep.
Man, there's so many I could throw in that fifth spot. Man, my top five. I guess there's one other kid that's still playing, and I could go off of kind of the guys that went on and played college is kind of being some of those top five. But there's Jamison Fisher. He's out of here at Kansas City, Kansas Community College. They're playing tonight, actually. I was hoping he's having a good game. Texting with him earlier. And then again, there's just so many guys off of my list. You mentioned a couple earlier. Gus Hawkins was great. Um, you know, he came into a time where he was blowing up, getting big with football. And then we had a really good team, and you know, he's going to hopefully maybe really be a really good player there at K State. And then it'll be fun to see him if he can find a team after that.
Yeah.
That'd be really pretty cool too. But he's got the size and the frame for it, and those were all really good guys.
Hmm. Yeah. The thing when I get done with most of those, if a coach can just rattle off 5 and be like, that's it, it's those 5, you might question the program,
You're in
right?
trouble.
Right? I mean, you just question the program if you've coached for any number of years and you can just rattle off 5 or 6 guys or girls and then you're done. And it's now if you're putting out like 5 or 6 Division I like elite athletes or something, okay, maybe it's different there, but every program has the guys that are the stars, the shooters, because basketball's a role sport. We got to have people to put it in the hoop, but we also got to have somebody that's going to defend, move the ball, do so many different things, be the guy on the bench that maybe only plays 5 minutes, but he keeps people energized
Energy and
and
everything.
all that. So
Yeah.
I just
I
enjoy
mean,
you could keep going and whether
yeah, I
that
could
play.
go down my list of
Oh,
all of our
absolutely.
players, and I can just think of everything that those guys have impacted our program.
Hmm.
One shout out to a guy like you said that I think was just phenomenal leader for us. That maybe his playing time was not something that he pictured for himself, especially as a senior. Is kid named Marco Scavo. I talk about him a lot to our team, and he came into his senior year. He worked his way up to it, and he knew that his role was going to have to, like you said, roles are so highly important, and it's hard as a high school kid because he came and talked to me after some of our early games, and he's like, "Hey, man, coach, I got all my friends. They're like, I don't know how you play if you're not getting as much playing time." And so he was kind of torn up a little emotionally, and we sat down and talked, and I got emotional with him too after a practice, and I was like, "Hey, look, I think you're just not understanding. It goes back to my 3 Ps. You're not understanding your purpose. Your purpose is bigger than what other guys on our team are providing. We got the guys that are scoring 20 a game or whatever it is, and your job is the guys love you, and the guys know that if Marco's flying around and having fun, then they're going to be doing the same. So he was like, "Yeah, that's what I want." And so I just love that. And we had a few other guys that have done that, but that's really hard to do as a high school kid. And again, my top 5 could be filled up with my 5 favorite, my 5 most talented, or you could go on and on and on.
Absolutely. So let's switch gears here. You've mentioned a couple of really good players you've had to coach against at Shawnee Mission Northwest, but give me your 5 that you've had to coach against and game plan for.
Oof. We've seen a lot of talent here in the Johnson County area. As a head coach, yeah, the Shawnee Mission Northwest could take all 5 spots. That team was a monster team. Ours were a monster too when we were playing well. It
Hmm.
showed, but um, you know, Keaton Wagler's playing at Illinois right now
Hmm.
and just had 18 points as a true freshman.
Yeah.
I'm glad Ethan Taylor made a wise decision and has ended up, in some other places that will hopefully be really good for him. But there's been some others, I think. So those two, you almost can't stop them. You're just hoping to try and control them just a little bit. Some others that come off the top of my head. So like the third one, Saxton King from Lawrence. He was a couple years ago. I think he's still at Mo State. He was averaging like 30 a game. And you kind of asked me earlier, do I adjust what we do? He was one that defensively we were definitely trying to, how are we going to play him and what are we going to do to kind of shut him out? But it's a part of our packages. But we're trying to not let him catch. We're trying to not let him feel comfortable having 2 guys in his way and make other people beat us. Um, as an assistant coach, there was Christian Brown.
Mm,
You know,
yeah.
he ended up just getting better and better and better and better. And a lot of guys do that, but um, you know, he was a phenomenal talent at Blue Valley Northwest. And I remember it was my first year at Mill Valley, and I was just like, this guy is insane. So he was young, but he became a pretty good one. There's another one, Nick Anderson from last year. He was another tough talent that we had to always try to adjust to. And shoot, last year we had 2 7-footers in our league. I don't know what it's the Olathe Northwest big. I'm blanking on his head, but God, he was tough for us.
Yeah.
So that would be kind of my guys.
Yeah.
I think I'm over 5.
That's okay. Again, that's the fun part of being at Mill Valley and in that league and playing some of the dudes you do is, I mean, let's be honest. People that get into coaching, there's a certain level of competitiveness in you, right? You don't want to just go play a game where you're going to win by 50 every night. Like you, occasionally, some of those are nice to have because you can kind of take a breath. But more often than not, you do want the Shawnee Mission Northwest. You want to challenge, see where your guys are, how you're doing as a program, and and so I, I actually didn't get to see the Northwest kid. I don't think he's quite at the same level, but he's 7 foot and he's big. So that's a challenge in its own right. Um,
Oh yeah.
Real quickly, what college do you root for in hoops?
Growing up, it was KU basketball. I mean, they kind of just dominated at least what I would see a lot, you know.
Okay.
But as I've gotten older or other things, I love watching good basketball. I of course, went to Wichita State, so I love checking in and see how they're doing and watching them play. It was fun to cheer for them for a couple years there, and they made some really great runs and they had some good teams. And they actually played KU and Omaha, and I got tickets to get up there, and that was fun to watch them beat KU. Just
Mhm.
the local in-state stuff.
Well, I was
But
hoping.
I enjoy watching K-State play, but
Uh,
it's been KU growing up.
So one of the things I like to do, most people that I've interviewed are KU basketball fans, so they've
Mhm.
given me their all-time KU 5. So I am curious what your all-time KU 5 would be. But I'm also gonna, more importantly, I want to know your all-time Wichita State 5.
Okay, KU, man, there's so many good players.
So we've had people
I
take it different directions. Roby
oh,
went
I know
with
it is.
Roby just went with best even after their high or college career was over. Like he picked Embiid because he's like one of the best ever now. Um,
Yeah, or
Coach
best in
Tinsley,
there.
Coach Tinsley at Topeka Seaman, the girls' coach there, he went with his guys, his favorite guys he
Mhm.
watched growing up and loved seeing. So you take it however you want.
Yeah,
You're
I
gonna get
think I'm gonna
criticized
go with.
either way.
Oh, I know. There's so many wrong answers to this, but luckily I don't know any of those guys. Well, I guess I know Wayne. I got to coach up in Leavenworth, and so I got to know Wayne Simmons pretty well. Great guy, to be honest. I'm going to say this right now. I'll put him in my top 5, and I
He'd be
think
in mine.
I don't think people can argue against him very much. But the ones I really liked watching is like Nick Collison. When I was growing up, I modeled my game after him. He loved the fundamentals down inside, the up and unders, the jump hooks, just great off 2 feet. Just a solid basketball player. And then Kirk Heinrich was fun to watch too. I guess you could try to say Ray LaFrance and Jock Vaughn, but I don't think those two are in my top 2. Paul Pierce, loved watching that guy. So I think Paul Pierce would be in my group there. Um, Man, then it gets really nitpicky. Um, Danny Manning. I mean, how could he not go against that?
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of that big one from back in the day. And I guess, I heard Coach Rice talk about it like Wilt, from way back in time, but I never saw him play, and I never saw Danny Manning play either. But a lot of highlights.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I guess if I went Danny, Collison, Pierce, Wayne, and Mario Chalmers, maybe those would be my guys.
Well, I mean, you can definitely make a case Chalmers hit the biggest shot in KU history.
That one was pretty fun to watch.
I mean that was a big time shot. So, all right, let's jump over to the Shockers.
Okay, go for my time period. Funny story was it was when I first got to Wichita State, I was a freshman, and we had these like suites. Across from me was this senior guy, and his name was Jamar Howard. He's actually from Bishop Miege and all this. I was like, wow, I'm getting partnered up with this guy. he's one of the. I think he's on the record boards of all some of their all times. He's just a great guy, good personality. He was one of the first persons I remember I could throw the ball to the rim, and he would just fly out of nowhere and just hammer it. So I think I got to go with my guy Jamar. He was one of the first people I got connected to there. Just the great dude. My other really fun roommate that I love is a guy named Matt Breyer. I love using him as an example with our guys. He's a 5'10" point guard. His dad was a basketball coach in high school, and he just came up and he was a dog. Like if you're going to be 5'10" at Division One, and we were pretty good in those days, you got to really be with it. You got to know what you're doing. He actually just took a job as the head coach at Stephen F. Austin in Texas down there. He's doing a great job in his coaching circles there. Now, I think then my others, I got to start going with some talent here. And there's a lot from back in the day. Fred VanVleet's been fun to watch. I'm still shocked to this day that they were able to get him out of the Chicago area. But, he was a kid that was under recruited, and then they brought him in. And then, of course, I think he's the head of the player association in the NBA now. Like, he's had such an awesome run. It was really fun to watch. And then another in-state Kansas kid, Ron Baker. They had that fun team that, made it all the way through. And he was a big part of that, and his development was great. And I think I'm down to my last one again. It gets hard when you try to split hairs. They had Antoine Carr back in the day. But I think I want to go with a good friend of mine. I was actually looking at his stuff the other day. There's Rob Campman was another senior on that team. He was a good guy. But I think the other one's Paul Miller. He ended up being Surrey Valley Player of the Year senior year. God, he gave me some elbows. Like we would just be battling 6'10", 270 pounds, and I always thought I was big, and he was tossing me around, and it hurt. The guys that beat me up.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I'm not real familiar with Wichita State basketball, but you said Antoine Carr. He would he'd be in that old one, and I think Xavier McDaniel.
Yeah, the X-Man.
X-Man, like he would have been that older, right? And again, those really weren't the people that we grew up watching, but those would have been two. And then one guy I enjoyed watching on that run with Ron Baker, and then was Anthony Early, I think is his name.
Yeah,
that dude. He was a good college player. He actually, I thought he might make it more in the league, but the league's tough. And that's why
special people that are in that league.
Yeah, I remember the first time I ever heard of Ron Baker. So I went to Minneapolis High School, just north of Salina, and my brother was watching them in the state championship game against Scott City and Ron Baker, and it went down to the wire, and he made the basket right at the buzzer to win the state title game. I was texting with my brother. I was like, what happened? He's like, hey, they got this guy. I think he's Division I. I'm like, okay, all right. You were just throwing around this 3A guy as a Division I player. Let's just pump the brakes a little bit here. Well, he was right. That dude was good. And he obviously went to the NBA. So
he showed it. I mean, he had to work to get there because I'm pretty sure if I remember right, because I grew up in Garden City, Kansas. So, Scott City's not too far from us, but I didn't ever see him really in high school. But I did see, some of his early years there at Wichita State, and he was a scrawny kid and just a hard worker, though, kind of like, what we described with Reese Riegel and some of those guys in our program. But, the wild thing is the recruiting world. I don't know if Ron Baker gets recruited to Division I in our current state of college athletics. So
I would agree with you there. And you're probably seeing that, I mean, I know Reese, in talking with him over the summer, he did have a couple of looks from some smaller D1s, and I think he ultimately ended up here in Topeka at Washburn, if I'm not mistaken, which is a great program in itself. And the one thing people, I don't think, truly understand is the quality of basketball at the Division II, Division III, JUCO, and NAIA levels. Like those, most people that are still hooping after their high school career, they're really good. Maybe they're not
Yeah,
the next Michael Jordan, but that there's very few of those anyway.
absolutely. I think, as soon as you go and if you actually watch a game, and I think that's hard for a lot of people because they just don't go see those. Like they
Mhm.
don't go see a Washburn play who's honestly, I think a lot of D1s, over half of D1s don't want to play Washburn because they know what that would end up.
Mhm.
And, when you go and actually sit there and watch them play, you're like, wow, this is as good or a high quality product as um, you know anything out there.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of watching David Coben impact basketball at a basketball game just as much as anybody. That's about. He'll tell you he's probably 6 foot, but I think he's more like 5'8". And he could
Yeah.
impact a game. And like from my perspective, like man, how's he not getting recruited? Well, it was kind of the start of the time period that now Reese and and Jakai and them are going through even more so. But
Hmm.
he like Reese ended up at a good program, a Division II program down at Pitt State, and so if they ever match up, I'm gonna have to check that one out. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, all right, let's see what you like in the NBA. Give me your 5 guys from the NBA, and this one even it can be time periods. You go however
All
you want.
time.
Give me your 5.
I think since being a coach, I feel like I've watched the least amount of sports over the last, especially 5 years being a head coach. But I'll go with my all time, and being a product of being born in the '80s, growing up in the '90s, you can't go without Michael Jordan. I mean, you want to call it, the Mount Rushmore or whatever you want to call it, because it's really hard to split hairs with
Hmm.
guys that are this good.
Yeah.
But I loved MJ growing up. I always did the like Mike jumping off of couches,
Hmm.
you name it. But then there was a transition when I became a player, and there was a guy that was my age that came into the league and was destroying everything, and that was LeBron James. I mean, they're kind of my 1A, 1B, and I know everybody wants. There's so many sides of that argument. I get into it with my coaches sometimes, and but those would be definitely my top two picks. Um, and then being a post guy, I love Shaq. That guy, he was so fun to watch.
Hmm.
Just seeing him rip apart backboards and dunk on three people. It was a good time. Oh shoot! Now then, who else am I trying to go with? Hmm. Oh, how can I forget this one? I think he's actually my third favorite, but Kobe. And I think the older I get, I don't know if that says a whole lot about me, especially when you watch a lot of his videos of him just talking. It's not so much about him playing basketball. His philosophies and things, the way he talks about motivation and the work he put in. I become more and more of a fan of his game and what he did just by him talking. And of course, I think it's a huge hole in our world that, especially in the basketball world, that he's not around anymore. And then that last one's gonna be tough. There's a million guys you could go with, but I think with all those guys that I listed, you got to go with a point guard some type. So I don't know, maybe a Steve Nash, a Jason Kidd, those guys that can help distribute because the four I named, they're all going to want the ball in their hands. So you could throw
Yeah.
a Steph Curry.
Yeah.
He changed the game, but
Hmm.
but of course Steph's got to shoot. So I think you need a distributor. So I think those would be my guys. Maybe I'll go with Miss Steve Nash
I like it.
throwing all those assists.
I like all those guys. I agree with you on Kobe. I thought he was a great player watching him, and I enjoyed it. His game was very similar to Jordan. So growing up a Jordan fan, you kind of had that, oh man, he's a copycat. But then as he got away from the game and started putting out some of his Mamba stuff, and you start to hear it, and it still comes out. I think he may be impacting the game more than Jordan, or I don't know about LeBron because he's still in it. He's definitely
Hmm.
impacting the game more after basketball than Jordan ever did, I think, other than
Yeah,
Jordan's gear. But Jordan got the
right,
gear because of what he did at basketball. Like his
right.
motivational stuff for not only men but also the women's side of hoops
Hmm.
has been huge. Um,
Yeah.
well, Well, Coach, for anybody that does listen to this, if you want to follow along this year on X and Instagram at MVJagHoops, you can follow Coach and the team and see how they're doing. They're going to have a phenomenal year, led by Jakai and Reese and the rest of the senior class and that phenomenal junior class as well. Wish you nothing but the best.
Yeah,
There's
appreciate
only
it. Thank
one
you for
game this
having us
year that
on.
I want you to lose. That's only one game. I'm not even going to say which one it is, but I only want you to lose one game. You can win the rest of them. That's only because I got a kid in the program, so got to root for
Yeah,
him. But no, I really have enjoyed watching your teams. They're fun teams. You guys play a
right.
fun brand of basketball, and you know, it's even more so. Let's see, I got to play against Mason Kemp. I threw my first ever alley oop lob to him, so he didn't forget that from your days. Uh, Gus, Reese, man, I can't even think the other point guard
Kale
opposite
Drummond.
Kale, and then the other one opposite him that year, about the same height, but just as
Oh,
quick.
Brian Wiltsey, maybe.
Yep, Wiltsey, got to play with
Yep.
him. Another offensive lineman that played, not as big as Gus, but big enough.
Soley.
Yes, all those guys.
Newman.
I don't know why we were bringing 20-year-olds, 19, 20-year-olds into a 40-year-old man game, but you have a
Oh
phenomenal
yeah.
crew of guys that you've coached. To a man, every one of them were wonderful people. So
Yeah,
kudos
that's
to you
great.
and their parents and everybody else associated with them. But anyway, thank you for coming on. I know it took a little bit for us to get it together, and thanks to AC for connecting us. And
Yeah.
I'm going to try to. I know I think you got a game at Piper maybe early on in the season. I might try to catch that one.
Right. Yeah. We're going up to Piper for a tournament, but we actually had to move one game here this week. Schedules have been a nightmare. But our season opener is actually we get a home opener with St. Joe Lafayette. They're kind of a historic team up there
Okay.
out of St. Joe. So they're going to come to town on December 2nd, and then we'll get to kind of open up over on the road in Piper at December 5th and 6th in a small tournament. That'll be a fun atmosphere and a good environment.
Yeah, we DeSoto went to their brand new state of the art gym last year for the sub-state championship, and it is electric. And so that'll be good for you guys. That'll be a good test. I know that Steve's got a good program and a really good point guard in DJ. So good luck to you guys, and best of luck.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.